Greetings, everybody. It is 2 o'clock in Riga, 1 o'clock in Oslo time. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Thursday afternoon, and thanks for taking out your time to join a webinar on understanding Norwegians as partners and clients. My name is Ilse Garoza, and I'm Executive Director of the Norwegian Chamber of Commerce in Latvia, and I'll be today's moderator. Today we are about to hear two excellent speakers, Snorre, Karkkonen, Svensson, and Thomas Danielsen, two ethnic Norwegians who live in Latvia and who are willing to share their knowledge and insights on how to better understand Norwegians and their values, and also how to better engage them via which platforms and which tools. This webinar is organized jointly by Norwegian Chamber of Commerce and LIAA today. Briefly about us, we are a member-based organization representing close to 100 biggest Norwegian investors in Latvia and Latvian companies operating in Norway. We provide an interactive platform for engagement and experience sharing, for networking, and maintaining close contacts with the Embassy of Norway in Latvia and engage in a dialogue with the Latvian government. I'll want to also bring on board Evita Nedzvedska, the head of the LIAA office in Norway. So you get to, so she can share a few words.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's great seeing such a big interest for the webinar. So I welcome all the companies joining today that are new to the Norwegian market and are ready to discover more from the market. It's also a pleasure seeing so many participants that call Norway their home market and already successful and experts. And of course, greetings to the Norwegian investors operating in Latvia. So LIAA office in Norway is based in Oslo, and been working since 2005. So the main goal is to attract Norwegian investors to Latvia and help Latvian companies to do business in Norway and find new export partners. So reach out to me if you have any questions about doing business in Norway and export. So I think that this pandemic time is a good time to do the homework and research the market, so that in post-pandemic we would be even more knowledgeable and prepared to accelerate business in Norway.
So coming back to some practicalities, we're streaming this webinar from the Norwegian Embassy in Riga. Today, the meeting will take place in a webinar format, and for questions and interactions, we'll be using an external platform, slido.com. So I'll quickly share the screen with you so you can take down the information. So if you want at any time during this webinar, if you want to ask your question, go to either via your phone or your computer to www.slido.com and enter the number 91216, which is the code for today's meeting. There you will see what other people have asked, and you can submit your question or vote for some other questions that have already been submitted. In that way, these questions will come up faster in the question queue. So let's kick the webinar off. And first, I would like to give the virtual floor to Snorre Karkkonen Svensson, who is the founder and co-owner of the House of Languages and is the go-to expert when it comes to the Norwegian language and culture. So Snorre, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'll try to give some enlightening how to understand us Norwegians. You see a picture here with functioning communication between a Norwegian and a Latvian. And I hope that we will all succeed in communicating. And I don't think it's too difficult. We will it's not too difficult for Latvians and Norwegians to understand each other. And I'll come back to that. But first, a little bit about myself. Yes. So I am a language teacher. I've taught Norwegian for more than 20 years here in Latvia at Latvian Academy of Culture, at Latvian University, and at other institutions. And I also worked on second language acquisition as research at University of Bergen in Norway. I also work as translator, so I translate from Latvian and Lithuanian to Norwegian. All kinds of documents and so on, but also what's closer to my heart is translating literature. So now I'm translating Marte Spiens by Snorre to Norwegian. Here in Latvia, I worked as a culture worker and also publishing books. And now for the last 2 years, I'm working with the House of Languages, Valodu Māja. But then to this topic. So question is, are Norwegians something exotic for Latvians? And I'll share my story. I came to Latvia in the mid-90s as an exchange student in secondary school in Ogre. And of course, when I came, then everything was strange and different and in a different way than I was used to in Norway at home. But it went like 1 week, and then I started to notice that there are so many common things between Norwegians and Latvians, the same way of doing things, the same way of thinking, and the mentality actually is quite similar in spite of some differences. And now, compared to the mid-90s, then Norway and Latvia are more similar than at that time. So what's the reason for this? Well, I explain it with something called the gingerbread countries. So both Latvia and Norway are countries where people tend to eat gingerbreads in Christmas time. But we are not alone doing that. Also, the other Nordic countries and Estonia and Germany are places where people eat gingerbread, but not Russia, not Lithuania, not Poland. So we have gingerbread countries, and there's a lot of features that are common for these countries. Christianity was introduced from Germany in this area. And there is the Hanseatic League, and also these are the countries of predominantly Lutheran Christianity. Also, there have been throughout history, there have been living Germans with lots of influence in these countries until the 20th century. So this historical background is one of the reasons why we are so similar here in this area. So I will speak about different values and about Norwegians, but you will see that some of them are also shared by Latvians more or less. One important value for Norwegian is trust. And the Nordic countries in general are a place where trust is dominating in society. For business, it helps a lot because you can make agreements orally on phone or with an email, and not always you need those long contracts to make things happen, and it makes it easier. There's also trust in the working place that people are working more higher level of individual responsibility, and that also makes things function well. So, and honesty is also important. So like bluffing is like something you shouldn't do in Norway, then it will be, you will lose trust if that is discovered. Something connected to this is social responsibility and honesty, like paying taxes. And in Norway, both individuals and businesses, many, not all, of course not everyone, but many actually pay taxes. They happily pay the taxes because they know that they get so much from state and society, and as a part of this is this also this willingness to contribute to society, and social responsibility is often a core value for many businesses in Norway. You see on the picture on the right-hand side, that's actually something common for Norwegians and Latvians. In Norwegian, it's called dugnad. In Latvian, it's called talka. And in Norway, so even in cities, you have this dugnad, talka, when people living in the same building are helping each other to make it nice and tidy around, in the garden, around on the street, and repairing things. And now when we have this crisis in society, then this notion is also used on society level, that we now have a talka or dugnad in society to tackle this crisis or problem, and we do it together. I will also mention that one factor which maybe Latvians are better than Norwegians, and that Latvians are maybe more open for new things, to try out new things. Latvians maybe adapt to new situations more easily than Norwegians. Norwegians are maybe a bit more traditional and more relying on their habits, how they usually do things, and to change a habit is more difficult maybe for Norwegians. Maybe partly that can be explained by Latvian history, where there has been a lot of crises and changes where you just have to adapt in order to survive. But then paradoxically, this is, Norwegians are not that open to new things, but maybe Norwegians are more open to people. Diversity in society is more valued in Norway, also diversity in the working place. This inclusive and more liberal values in society in Norway than in Latvia, maybe, where there's more these values connected to people are a bit more conservative and traditional than in Norway. So Latvians are open to new things and new ways of doing things. Norwegians are more open to all kinds of different people, so two different pluses, so to say. Then a thing that can be a problem with the Norwegians is that things take time. I feel that there is a different kind of dynamics in Latvian society and in Latvian way of doing things. Processes are often slower in in Norway. Maybe you have been in contact with Norwegians and they maybe don't answer that quickly or things like that. And I think that it can be explained at least by two reasons. One reason is that we have this consensus culture I say we, but I live in Latvia, but Norwegians have the consensus culture. It means that a lot of decisions are made together, not by one boss, but during meetings. It means that you have long and several meetings in order to make a decision in many cases, and it makes that things take more time, but it's also kind of more democratic, and people are heard to a large extent, which also makes that you can get some new ideas, and that's also valuable. But as I said, then it makes also things take more time. Another factor is that stability and safety is very important for Norwegians. I have this helmet here. I explain why, but first, what I remember when I came here in the 90s, which was kind of a culture shock for me. I got into the car, and then I wanted to put on the safety belt. But you know, this little thing where you put the safety belt, it was hidden under the seat, and I couldn't understand why. Why was that done? Because why wouldn't you have safety and put on your safety belt? This was very difficult for me to understand. Now, of course, that has changed in Latvia, but still, if you see, the driving culture is quite different in Norway and Latvia. I would say that for Norwegian, this safety is more important. And like the helmet, if you see on the street in Riga, how many % of people driving a bike are wearing a helmet, and in Oslo you will see quite a difference, and that's maybe connected also to the way of thinking that Norwegian think more about consequences and long-term thinking, and also taking less risks. And to take less risks, it also gives less possibilities. So it's difficult to say what is better or worse, but it's maybe a difference between Norwegians and Latvians. I would say something about the way of communication. Then one point which is quite where foreigners often misunderstand Norwegians is in work and business context, is that Norwegians tend to have a more non-direct way of expressing requests. For instance, if you want somebody to do something, Norwegians would say, maybe you could do this sometime, but actually it means please do it now, right away. Well, I'm saying it a bit extreme now, but it is a difference in the way of communicating for Norwegians compared to other countries, that Norwegians tend to be less direct. And also connected to that, something that Norwegians share with Latvians is this reservedness, that you are not like open and express all your feelings. So it's more neutral. It's not always easy to understand if a Norwegian is very pleased or angry. And also Norwegians tend to avoid conflicts, and it's not, and then instead of saying something negative, that you hate something or this is rubbish or something, you just don't say it, and then there can be some misunderstandings connected to that. But this is not so very different from the Latvian way of being, I think. But there is a cure for this, a medicine. Alcohol is something that makes you can see Norwegians in a completely different way, or during the national holiday, this 17th of May, then you see a completely different way of Norwegians being more open and more like in Southern Europe. There are also some regional differences how inside of Norway, how people are. Then another important thing about Norwegians and work is that for Norwegians it's very important to have a work and life balance. And the employers will always have understanding for you taking care of children, no matter if you're man or woman, but parents stay home with their kids when they are ill, and they, in their spare time, they spend time together with their children. It means also that Norwegians usually don't work overtime. They go home at 4 o'clock, and some days even earlier, like Fridays. Fridays after 2 o'clock, it will be very difficult to have a meeting or get some answer. Many Norwegians are then already out of the office. The same goes for the week before Easter and between Christmas and New Year. And maybe most important of all is July. July is a month where almost all Norwegians have holiday. And it's a very difficult time to do any business at all, because people will not be working, except for those working in tourism or and other essential industries. But lots of people, almost all the population, is then have holidays in July. And then what do Norwegians do in their free time? This is also something common for Norwegians and Latvians, is that nature is very important. And for Norwegians, maybe even more, people are not going to church on Sundays, but they are going in the forest, having walking in the forest, or Norwegians are also very physical active, like, where do they go in the Friday afternoon? Well, they go to hytta, which is the cabin in the mountains or at the sea, and where they love to go there when they have free time. And so this is also, I mentioned this because this is an excellent theme to speak with Norwegians for informal conversations, because Norwegians love to speak about their cabin, their hytta, and that's a good way of connecting with Norwegians. So we are speaking about these small houses, hytta, and then I'll say some words about House of Languages, where I work. So we are a language culture center in Avoti neighborhood in Riga, and we are now establishing a center of excellence for language acquisition and teaching. It means that a place where language teachers can develop, and we also are working on making new learning material and methods for teaching languages. We also have a small publishing house, and during the next 10 years, we will establish the first language museum in Latvia. As you heard, these are non-commercial activities, but I will also mention the services that might be interesting for you, the participants here. And that is that we offer translation services into Norwegian of web pages, promotional materials that you have, technical specifications, and so on. Translations are done by people who have Norwegian as mother tongue, so it will not be like of lesser quality. Its quality is on our first priority here. Also lectures, consultations on issues connected to Norwegian culture, like in this small speak chair. I only touched a little bit of everything that there is to know about Norwegians. There are lots more. And of course, language is very important for communication. All those Norwegians speak English very good, then you get much closer speaking in their language. And we also offer language courses and language testing and for Norwegian and other languages. So that is what I wanted to share with you. So I'm looking forward to try to answer your questions then later on. Thank you. And here's also my contacts, our contacts.
Thank you very much, Snorre, for your excellent presentation. I mean, you got a very short time span to include such a huge topic, to cover such a huge topic. I will, in the meantime, I'll ask Thomas Danielsen to turn on his video. But for now, a quick reminder that the questions you can ask in the slido.com platform by entering 91216, and we'll get back to questions after Thomas's presentation. So Thomas, the virtual floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Let's see if something came up on my on my screen here. Give me a second. All right. There you go. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
And you can hear me. Great. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas, and well, this is how I look, or usually before the coronavirus. Now I have longer hair and facial hair and all of that. I think that Snorre did a great job representing some of the cultural issues and sides of Norway, and there were several times that I was quite laughing by myself. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about platforms and tools that you can use in order to engage Norwegians, and sort of try to build a little bit on top of some of the things that Snorre said, even though it will be a bit more technical, I suppose. But my aim is that after this talk, you will sort of understand some of the things that you at least need to consider in order to get Norwegian customers. But before I get started, I just want to take 30 seconds to sort of introduce myself. Who am I? Well, I am from Norway, as said. I have lived in the Baltic states for 16 years, the last 8 of them here in Riga, or I live in Maruppa right now. I'm an entrepreneur, digital marketer. I have a Latvian wife. There's 3 kids in a house. In terms of background, I have an IT and e-commerce education from both Norway and Australia. And I have also a master in business from Vilnius, from a university called ISM, if you know it. In addition to that, I have 3 companies that I own or co-own. One is in tourism, and that company is currently in coma. The other one is a small sort of media company, which is just a fancy word for us having a few websites that we run. And the third one is a digital marketing agency where we help Baltic and Norwegian export companies being found on Google. That's very briefly about me. So let's move on to the topic here. As many companies today, given the current situation, has discovered that if you're not online, you are either dead or slowly dying. Jimmy Wales, I'm sure everyone knows Wikipedia. He said, if you're not found in Google, you do not exist. And to a large extent, I agree on that, and that's going to be more and more real in the future as well. But where should you be in order to reach Norwegian customers and clients? I'll show you some statistics. Here we have some numbers. These are actually from April, so they are very, very fresh. As you can see, Google has 96% market share in Norway. There are other search engines like Bing and DuckDuckGo, but nobody really uses them. And there are over 50 million daily searches in Google. That's more than 10 per person. There's 5 million people, but you know, babies and babushkas, they don't use Google. You see that Facebook is quite big, and yeah, you can see the numbers here. What platform you should use and which one you should be on really depends on what services and products you are offering. And you don't have to be everywhere. It is much better that you do one thing really good than you do a poor job on all the platforms. And if I was going to give like one suggestion and one advice, it would actually be to have a Facebook business page and post there regularly. That is important. For many, that sounds like a lot of work and they don't really want to get into it. But you have these automatic posting tools like SocialBee or Buffer, where you basically work for a couple of hours, chuck everything in there, and that tool will post for you on Facebook for months and months going forward. Why do I think Facebook is important? The thing is that once someone has found you, either in Google or elsewhere, they will very often go to Facebook and research more about you. And as you heard, like Snorre talked about, it is wise and smart to look trustworthy and real if you want to reach a Norwegian client base. So having an active Facebook page will really show that you are a real company, that you do real things, that you exist, and all of those. So it adds to that sort of trust element in you. All right, so I'm going to move on. But before I move on, I'm going to tell you a story. And it's my story. When I came here, very soon I started a company, and I had 3,000 euros, which was the share capital in Lithuania at the time. And I grew that company to about 1.5 million in turnover, only by using Google. I was studying in Vilnius, and I had identified that there was a gap in the market, that there was a place for, you know, an international travel company bringing people in. And over a weekend in April 2005, I sat down and I hacked together a web page. I did all the things with all the Google optimization and whatnot, and of course in Norwegian language. And actually within a few days, I was ranking on the first page of Google. That doesn't really happen today. It takes a little bit longer time, but back then you could. But also, in order to get sales faster and get moving, I was using Google Ads. And if anyone knows how those works, you pay for how many clicks you get. And I was paying 1-2 cents per click back then. It was crazy cheap. Today, those same clicks cost between 2 and 8 euros per click, and competition is much higher. Anyway, pretty soon we were very successful. We were flooded with business. We had customers coming to Riga, Tallinn, Vilnius, and all of that. And a big part of our success was the fact that we were ranking in top of Google, on the first page of Google. And the point of this story is sort of, I want to show that by doing the right things online on Google, you can actually build real companies that makes real money. But was it only my Google skills that created this success? It was definitely an important factor, but also I did all the right things in terms of, you know, convincing Norwegians to buy, building that trust, And, you know, and to get them to buy not only from me, but also to come to the Baltic states versus buying those trips from the competitor. And, you know, Snorre, before me, he was just talking about the cultural aspects of Norwegians, and he mentioned the trust aspect, and it is really, really important. Unfortunately, a lot of, for many Latvian businesses, I would say, the trust that many of us Norwegians have between ourselves doesn't always extend as much outwards to others, and especially not to Eastern Europe. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of criminal gangs in Norway, mainly from Lithuania, that has gotten a lot of media attention. You know, media, they like to write the sensational stories about these criminal gangs, and that obviously is very negative. The thing is that most Norwegians, they don't necessarily know the difference between a Lithuanian and a Latvian, and it's sort of all mixed up. And because of that, everyone suffers, not only the Latvians, but, you know, the good Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians suffer a little bit from this. But luckily, these things are getting better and better. But it also shows why it's so important for organizations like LIAA to do a good job promoting the good side of things here. All right, how does all this tie back to how to be found on Google and how to sell in Norway? I'm getting to that. Let me show you a nerdy joke first. Do you know where's the best place to hide a dead body? I can't see any of you, so the answer is on the second page of Google. Ha ha. Let me just for a minute get a little bit technical. It's hard not to be technical, but I'll try to make it as light as possible. There are only two ways that you can be found on the first page of Google. It is Google Ads and Google Search. There we go. Google Ads, also referred as PPC, are those ads that you see on top of Google when you do a search. They cost money and you have to pay all the time. And as soon as you stop paying, they disappear. Organic search, which is the search result under the ads, which you achieve by search engine optimization, they are basically free and they work 24/7. Let me show you. This is typically how a search result look. I just did a random search in Google using the keyword utendørs sauna. And you can see in this case, there's only one ad on the top and then comes the organic under. There are more under, but yeah, I could only fit so many in on this. Another thing is that what we know is that only 30% or less actually clicks the ads, and as many as 70% or more, they just scroll over and move down. Usually these ads, they are as many as 5, sometimes even more. And people get used to the ads and they sort of just start scrolling past. Why is it important? And why is this important? And why is it important to be on the first page of Google if you want to sell to Norway or to anyone for that matter? And I'm going to show you some numbers again. Once you have the search results, where do people click? As you can, there's been done research on this. And if you see the first 4 search results in the organic, which is under the ads, catches almost 90% of the clicks of the people who do the search. And only 1 to 3% goes to second page of Google. So once you know this, you sort of understand that this nerdy joke is actually quite clever. So yeah, this is huge. This is important to know in terms of, you know, selling online or being found online in general. And yeah, that's sort of the nerdy part that I was going to go into. And now I need to try to sort of tie all this back to what you can and what you should do in order to be found in Google in Norway, and you know what you can and should think about and consider if you want to gain the trust and business from Norwegian clients. I assume most of you have a website already, and if you have international clients, you probably have an English version of that website. And if you're already working with Norway, there's a big chance that you might even have a Norwegian section on that webpage. Is this enough to gain Norwegian clients and sell in Norway? The short answer is no. If you want Norwegian clients, I would say yes, you should absolutely have Norwegian text on your webpage. That will help a lot. But I don't think it's enough. It's not enough. The thing is that I see so many web pages that are trying, companies that try to sell or get Norwegian clients and have Norwegian web pages. But they are either Google translated or they are translated by someone who's not Norwegian, not a native Norwegian. And the thing is, most of us Norwegians, we can generally spot in only a few seconds if this text was written by a Norwegian or someone not Norwegian. And really, you need to have good written text. Do you think that it evokes trust with if all your text is sort of not correct or very obvious that it's not by a Norwegian? Like if you have very technical stuff, you can use a service like Tilde, which is a member of the Norwegian Chamber. But Norwegians will spot like more text and content that is written by someone else most of the times. And remember what Snorre said, Norwegians are all about trust. Sure, Norwegians do speak English and it works in communication, but in my opinion, you kind of sort of need to give the perception, at least on your website, that there are some Norwegians involved, or at least all the text which is on your webpage is actually real or had some Norwegian involved, so to speak. So I think that having like really proper written text helps you way, way more. And well, then people like Snorre is a great help to have, actually. But let's say that currently you have a website which is in English and it is in Latvian. Can you just translate your text directly over to Norwegian and that is okay? No, it's really not. The thing is that Google is really, really smart. And if you translate exactly the same articles into different languages, Google will most likely understand that it's the same text. And worst case scenario, you can actually get something that is called duplicate content penalty. It's a technical term, but the thing is that you might get punished if you have the same text multiple times, even if it's in different languages. And the thing is, despite Google is really, really smart, they're not that smart. And it's good to give them a little sort of push and do the right things with your webpage. And sort of show and tell Google that these different contents are the same and which one is sort of the original one. How that works is very technical. I'm not going to dive into that here. I get a lot of questions. I'm getting to the end here. I'm getting a lot of questions like, can I just have my .com domain and just have different language section of my webpage? And the answer is yes, you can. You can definitely have so, but it is rather complex and it's very easy to mess up. And if you do, it will hurt your domain or your website as a whole. Really, if you want to sell to Norway and target Norwegian customers or any country for that matter, the best way is to have one webpage per one language and have content and a full focus on that one language. That will give you the best results. That is, of course, also the most expensive option. It takes the most time to maintain, create, and all of that. But, you know, if you are serious and you really want to build trust with Norwegians and rank well in Google and you know, be found, having a separate web page per country or language that you're working in is definitely the best. There's no doubt about that. This was supposed to be my ending, but sorry, I need a little bit more time. While I was preparing this presentation, something happened. You saw the search results that I did. Hold on, let me find it. This one I showed you before. The keyword, the search term that I used is utendørs sauna, which basically it means outdoor sauna. And let's see, I'm gonna change here. Check this out. I don't know if there's someone in the woodworking industry here, but this search, this company is it's a Lithuanian company that produces outdoor saunas and these hot tubs that you have in your garden, on your cabin, in your hytte, as Snorre talked about. And while I was doing this presentation, I found them, and then I used some of my ninja tools that I have, and I can sort of look a little bit behind the scenes. And I found that these guys, they have one web page per country that they are working in, and they have a Norwegian site, they have a Danish site, they have a German site, they have an English site. And with my ninja tools, I found that they are ranking on the first page of Google in all of their markets. It's crazy. I'm guessing they are selling like mad. So what if you are a company in Latvia and you want to compete with these guys? You can, because I also found that the competition is not that big. They have Norwegian text, but it's obviously not written by a Norwegian. So if you make a website where you do all the right things in all the right order, and do it properly with really good pictures and Norwegian text, and do all the technical bits and bobs that you need to do, I think there is a huge possibility for you to either rank next to them or even outrank them and really, really compete with them selling saunas and you know, these wooden sheds and all of these products that they are selling. And yeah, I think that's about it. Let's see what I have next here. Yeah, just a quote. So before I end this, I just want to do a tiny promotion if I can, to help sort of give back to the community and maybe help you. We have this sort of 99 website audit right now, where we can go in and we can look at your webpage, give you feedback, make a small video, what you do good, what you do bad, what you should focus on moving on forward. Usually it's $500 or more, but right now we have this 99 deal. Okay, that's all. Finally, I probably went over the time. Sorry about that. I have prepared a small PDF with some of the points that I talked about, and there's a lot of stuff that I would want to say that I didn't have time for. I also put that into that file. So if you're interested in having a file that talks about some of the points that I mentioned and a few extra, just send me an email. I will send it to you. If you're interested in the audit, you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My email is hello@fjord.seo. Perfect timing is that my website went down today and we have a lot of technical problems, so I included another email address there just to be on the safe side. Okay, that's it. Now we can move on to this part.
Thanks a lot, Thomas, for giving the presentation. Yes, we have 10 minutes left for the Q&A session right now. And so while Evita is pulling up a question on the screen, I would like to raise a question with both of our speakers. It's something that Thomas brought up. It's the question of the how Latvians and Balts and Eastern Europeans are perceived in Norway. Is there anything that you would say can be done or should be done to change those biases and stereotypes that there may be among the Norwegians? So,
I think that a lot has changed during the last years. There is improvement there partly because there are many people from the Baltic states living in Norway, and people also then start to know someone personally. Maybe there are parents of their children in their school. They meet through school or some other places. And also many Norwegians also have very positive view of people from the Baltic states. Well, we have these Lithuanian criminals, but at the same, there are some Lithuanian workers, builders that do a very good job. Also, of course, Latvians and Latvians and Estonians. But so this is something that so it's not like this only negative thoughts about people from the Baltic states. So it is improving, but still there is some way to go, that it will not be like that we will perceive the Baltic states as Northern Europe like UN does, and not this former Eastern Europe. It's after all, it's more than 30 years ago that Soviet Union started to collapse, and the political situation in Europe changed, but still this East-West thinking is still present, but it's slowly changing when people get to know people personally. It always helps really a lot.
Yeah, and I can also add to that part that there's been a very, very big growth in tourism over the last 15 years, which of course has been part of my work and what I've been doing. And that also helps, you know, people, I've heard so many times where people come here and say, oh my God, is this how it is here? It's so much better and people are so nice. And I had all this perception. And, you know, media can be a horrible thing, you know, when they really get stuck into the negative stuff. They often really paint a wrong picture, in my opinion. So, yeah, also, you know, tourism and people haven't been coming here a lot over the last 15 years has also helped. But also, you know, all the great people that actually moved to Norway and working there and shown that they are actually good people and not only criminal gangs from this region.
Thanks, Thomas. So now we have 7 more minutes and I will be going through we have quite a few questions asked. So let's keep, I'll read the question and then if you can provide a concise answer. There's a question, if we are planning to enter a Norwegian market, would you advise to hire a Norwegian speaking export manager, or English would be all right? Thomas, you already brought this up. Do you want to add comment on that?
I said sort of depends, but I think someone who speaks Norwegian would be helpful. I personally have always had Norwegian speaking working for me, and I find that helps. Yeah.
So then the next question I'll probably address to Snorre. Is ghosting part of Norwegian communication? Is that really okay to simply disappear and not answer phone calls and emails after meeting?
No, but as I said, sometimes it's because, well, Norwegians are slow and don't react. But it can also be like avoiding what's not pleasant, avoiding conflict and so on. I don't know if there can be all kind of, and of course it can also be ghosting. I wouldn't say that it's a part of Norwegian communication style, but it's sometimes you have to remind Norwegians, and well, well, I deal with that later, and then they forget it. And even like payment from companies and institutions in Norway, I've experienced that time after time, they don't pay in time, and it's not because they don't have money, it's just because they the processes go very slowly.
Thank you, Snorre. The next question I'll bring up to Thomas. What is approximate budget for marketing activities and visibility improvements companies should count on in the Norwegian market?
Oh, that is not an easy question to answer. It really do depends. It depends on so many things. There's a lot of things you sort of need to do to be visible. If you're only focusing on the online space, I guess you sort of could get by with 500 euros. I would probably say that that's like a minimum. But it really depends. It's not just about the ads or the activity that you do. You need to make sure you have everything working on the back end side as well, your websites and whatnot. But I would say anything from 500 and up. Of course, it depends on what you sell, how big it is, how expensive it is, how long is the decision process, how big of an investment is it? That question will be different if you're selling log houses versus if you're selling, I don't know, a pair of shoes or something like that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll try to squeeze in two more questions. And one question is, how do Norwegians see Baltic Latvian employment still as a cheap back office workers or potential specialists to grow their business with? Would either one of you want to pick this up?
I think that I think it's changing, but of course the fact that a lot of companies do have back office functions here, I would say that it's still to some extent perceived as a place you can have more affordable staff. But then again, a lot of these big companies that have these sort of services, they have often found that what their departments in locally here do sometimes actually outperforms the equal departments in Norway. So I think it's changing. I don't know. Yeah, okay. You have something to add?
So we'll move to the next question. How Norwegians feel about online Zoom meetings when talking about day-to-day business? Snorre, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I think Norwegians like to meet each other. It has been like that until now. There's one of the most traffic, the airline traffic, the routes with most traffic in all Europe is between the Norwegian cities. People are going back and forth to have meetings and so on. And maybe it's difficult to say how it will be now, because now people have practiced these online meetings. It's more, you spare time, and also it's more environmental friendly, which is also important for many Norwegians. But of course, it's not a substitute for that, and you lack lots of the informal aspects of meetings and personal contact. So Norwegians will be more open for that now, definitely. But if it's like going to be dominant, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, and okay, I'll squeeze in one more question within 15 seconds if it can be answered. In Sweden, we have good partners, not in Norway yet. What is the biggest difference between Sweden and Norway? Snorre, would you like to take that?
Yes, actually, there's more things that are similar. Norwegians and Swedes are very similar, and a lot of these values I mentioned, that goes also for Swedes. Swedes are compared to Norwegians are maybe a bit more formal, but I'm not sure if the different it's more of being more similar things than different things. But of course there are some aspects there.
Okay, so it's 3 o'clock now. We agreed to have the meeting between 2 and 3. I want to thank our excellent speakers today, Snorre and Thomas, like virtual applause to you. I will, yes, we will continue work both at the Norwegian Chamber of Commerce in Latvia, and also I bet LIAA is going to continue its mission to serve businesses here and in promoting cooperation. So I will put on our contact information. Feel free to contact us at any point of time and reach out if you have any further questions. So thank you so much for joining us today, and see you in some other events.